Boy. Spice Boy says, who is the favorite to win the new Women's United States Championship? WWE has introduced the new Women's US title. A lot of speculation about who the first champion will be. It's basically a mid-card title for the women. One would think that somebody in that mid-card level will be the first champion. Maybe somebody who has been unappreciated in wrestling and in WWE. I feel like the sentimental favorite for a lot of people right now is Chelsea Green. Jeff Meacham is here. Shout out to good old JM. Shout out to JJ Williams, Casa D18 Studios. Chelsea Green has been very entertaining in WWE. I think she's a great pick to be the first champion. But, this is a but, my only issue with Chelsea is that she has been booked as a comedy act, losing all the time. I feel like you need somebody with a certain level of credibility to be the first champion to get it off the ground. In order for Chelsea to win, she's got to turn that losing streak around and people have to start taking her seriously. I'm not sure Chelsea Green, the comedy character, having trash dumped on her is the right person. Now, Ian brought up Meechin as a choice, not Jeff Meacham, but Meechin, Mia Yim. I think she's a solid choice. I could see her being a contender. Dwayne Atkinson brought up Natalya. Natalya has been loyal to WWE. She's been there for over a decade, the longest tenured female superstar in WWE history. I think she's a solid pick. But the question is, will it be somebody from SmackDown or will it be somebody from Monday Night Raw? Dylan on Facebook brought up Tiffany Stratton. She could hold the United States title. Is certainly a possibility. Dwayne brought up Shotzi. Nick, if it was me, I would like to see Chelsea win it, but I feel like she needs to be pushed before you put the title on her. If the plan is to have her win, I would have her start winning matches right now and build her up so when, or if she does win the title, it isn't a laughing stock. Tiffany would be a great choice too. She might actually be my second pick. You know, back in the day, the United States champion would be the number one contender for the women's title. So what if Tiffany Stratton won the U.S. title and now she's the number one contender for Nia Jax? That could add more heat to their storyline. But of course, it would be somebody from Monday Night Raw, because this ties in with the next question from Colin. I agree with Dwayne Atkinson. I hope they actually do like a tournament or qualifying matches or something more than just a battle royal. But Cleaver Colin Andrews sent in this question via email, says, with the introduction of the WWE Women's United States Championship, do you see it being a title that is defended on both Raw and SmackDown, or will they give us a WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship and have the titles brand specific? I figured if WWE was going to have a women's IC title, it would have been announced on Raw right after the SmackDown title. You would have had Adam Pearce say, well, since SmackDown has a United States Championship for the women, we're going to have an IC title for the women on Monday Night Raw. But that didn't happen. I'm wondering if WWE is testing the waters with this. There's rumors that SmackDown will be a 3-hour show starting in January. Right now, USA Network is hosting 4 hours of WWE programming, and the rumor is that in January, once Raw moves to Netflix, SmackDown will become a 3-hour show on USA Network, and Monday Night Raw, it's still up in the air. Maybe it's going to be 2 hours, maybe it's going to be 3 hours. Who knows? But perhaps from a creative standpoint, WWE felt like if they're going 3 hours for SmackDown, now's the time to add a new title, and it could be where it's non-exclusive. It might be on Monday Night Raw too, for all we know. It's very interesting because the United States title is a SmackDown championship for the men, but then is it going to be Raw and SmackDown for the women? I guess time will tell on that. We'll see what WWE decides to do with this, but I feel like they're testing the waters with it, with the extra programming. And if Raw is 3 hours and SmackDown is 3 hours, you might as well have a women's IC title, even though I personally think there are too many titles in WWE. I got this email question from Ian. Shout out to Ian. Says, should WWE at some point down the line bring in a trios tag team title? Too many titles. AEW barely gets their trios titles over. I don't even know who the trios champions are right now. I think that if WWE, I don't think they're going to do this because they recently split up the titles. If the tag team titles, the regular tag team titles were just one set of titles on both brands, then I say, hey, you know what? Add trios titles. But since WWE split the tag team titles and we once again have tag titles on Raw, tag down, I think it's too much. I really do. One thing is I'd like to see some consistency. And once you have that with all the titles and everything has some value, at that point, I would advocate maybe introducing trios titles. But right now, I would say don't do it. Even though you do have a lot of 3-person groups in WWE, I'm not really a fan of adding even more titles at this point. Then here's the other problem. Here's the thing, to quote Jeff Meacham. If you add men's trios titles, well then people are going to say, well, now you got to have women's trios titles. And then it just becomes way overkill. So I would say no trios titles right now. Maybe one day, but I don't see it happening anytime in the near future. So thank you for that question, Ian. I appreciate it. I got this email from Jeremiah Dorset. Thank you, Jeremiah, for sending in this question. Jeremiah says, hey, Aaron, what is the status for Triple H? Are the rumors true that he is leaving next year, or is he still going to be running the company for the foreseeable future? I have not heard any rumors of him leaving. I do not see that happening anytime soon. WWE is doing record-breaking numbers right now, and Triple H is in charge of creative. Triple H has his finger on the pulse. He knows what he's doing. I know where you heard that rumor before. I have not heard it. I think Triple H, as long as he's healthy, he will be running WWE for many years to come. I do not see that happening. I see him in charge as long as he can physically do it, whether that's 10, 15, 20 years. I see him firmly in control of WWE. Unless business takes a huge downswing or downturn, I don't see TKO officials having any reason to change what is highly successful right now. So I don't see that happening with Triple H leaving in the near future. But thank you for that, Jeremiah. I appreciate it. Next email question here comes from Calvin Bowman. Now, Calvin Bowman wasn't specific with his question. He said, what is your favorite classic Survivor Series? I don't know if that means classic Survivor Series match or classic Survivor Series pay-per-view. So I'll go ahead and answer both. As far as classic Survivor Series matches, and I presume he's talking about, if he's talking about matches, talking about the traditional 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches. By the way, apparently Vince Russo said that about Triple H, so that really tells you all you need to know about that rumor. Anyways, classic Survivor Series elimination matches. I loved the 1990 Ultimate Match of Survival. I wish they would bring that back. That would be awesome. I really liked the wild card match in 1995. That was one of my favorites. Even though I wasn't a fan of the invasion angle, the 2001 match, and 2003, Ian messed up the year. It was 2003, Team Austin versus Team Eric Bischoff was a good one. As far as just overall Survivor Series shows, 2002 was a great one with the first Elimination Chamber. And the last couple of years have been really good. 2002 with the Bloodline, that was a good one. And then last year with the Bloodline, or not the Bloodline, with CM Punk coming back, Randy Orton coming back, that was another good one. War Games is a great addition to Survivor Series, but I still miss the traditional match, and I wish WWE would include it at Survivor Series to go along with the War Games matches. And Jeremy, yeah, Vince Russo says things to get traffic. That's what 99% of podcasters do. They say controversial stuff just to get clicks and get attention. And yes, 2018 was a fun one. Being with good old JM and meeting up with everybody, that was just an overall fun experience. And we even got to see Enzo Amore show up in the crowd. That was a great moment. All right, got this one here from Matt. Matt sent in this email question, says, what was your favorite War Games match from WCW and what was your least favorite? And have a great weekend with your family and friends. Same to you, Matt. Thank you for the question. Favorite War Games match would be, if we're talking WCW, favorite one would be 1992. Sting's Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance. That was a great War Games match. The 91 match was pretty good too. Worst War Games match, definitely the 1998 match when it was Team Hollywood NWO versus Team Wolfpack versus Team WCW. That match was just a complete disaster. That was the peak of the Warrior Hogan feud, or if you want to call it a peak. It was terrible. It was really bad. Shout out to Psycho Jet Black, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. And just a reminder, super chats are very much appreciated. And if you send one with a question, it gets top priority. I'm going straight to Psycho Jet Black's question. And I'm looking for some tricky questions. Somebody out there, throw me off. Give me a question that is going to put me on the spot when we're live. Let's have some entertainment tonight. And give me a really difficult question that will just blow everyone's minds. But Psycho Jet Black sent in this one. The rumor was that The Rock was supposed to win the WWE title at WrestleMania 40 and then drop it the next night. Yeah. Once again, I have not heard this rumor. I don't know where that came from. I don't think there was ever a plan for The Rock to win the WWE title. Maybe people thought when The Rock was going to potentially face Roman Reigns that The Rock would win the title and then drop it the next night. I don't think that was ever going to happen. If they had booked The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, I think Roman Reigns would have won. I don't think The Rock would have won. Rock would have absolutely been the wrong person to beat Roman Reigns and win the title just for one night. That was probably merely internet speculation. I don't think that anybody ever seriously thought that that was going to happen. Maybe The Rock did in his own mind, but I don't think so. It would have been a terrible idea if they had done that. I mean, thankfully they never got that far because the fans made it clear that they wanted Cody Rhodes in that main event spot. Take care, Jeff. Thank you for stopping by tonight. I appreciate it. All right, let's get back to the email questions. So this one comes from Dwayne Atkinson, who has been on the Nodq review and Nodq predictions panels. Says, what do you think will be the end game with Adam Cole, MJF, and Roderick Strong at Full Gear? MJF needs to win. Regardless of what's happening, I don't know if it's going to be a singles match as it currently stands, MJF versus Strong. If that's the match, MJF just needs to beat him clean and move on. Now, if Adam Cole's involved, I still think MJF should win and move on. The storyline with MJF and Adam Cole, they blew it off months ago. It was pretty much over when Adam Cole got hurt. And then they did the devil angle, but MJF was recovering from his injuries. Adam Cole was hurt, and they couldn't follow up on it. And now it's just not believable. MJF, as Matthew points out in the chat, MJF needs to be out of this feud ASAP. So I would have MJF win. If you're going to do an angle with Adam Cole and Roderick Strong, do that. But MJF needs to be moving past this. He needs to be back in the world title picture. And that's that. Like, I'm not a fan if they drag this out. MJF should win at Full Gear regardless of what the match is. And he should be fighting for the world title. He's your top guy. Book him like a top guy. Got another question here from Ian. This is an interesting one. Thoughts on David Sammartino, the son of Bruno Sammartino. Ian says, I thought he was a solid worker, but I always felt that he was a second-generation star that struggled hard to get out of his father's shadow. I believe he wrestled for Herb Abrams in the UWF. I know he was in WWE in 1985. The guy had no charisma. Sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and sometimes it does fall far from the tree. And he had a good look, but in the ring, he just didn't have it. He didn't have the charisma or personality to make it. The only thing he had going for him was the name, and it just wasn't going to be enough. Other than that, I really haven't seen him wrestle too much. I mean, he did have a brief WWE run, and I recall him being in the UWF, but beyond that, I don't even remember much of what he did. So I just think that he didn't have the goods. He had the name, but it just goes to show the name isn't everything. The name can get your foot in the door, but you got to have that talent and the ability to connect with the audience, and he didn't have that ability. Shout out to Michael, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Michael. I appreciate it. Michael says, why do people want the old 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series matches back when they had no stakes, but crap on the crown jewel angle that had no stakes? I just think they're fun. I guess it's nostalgia. Maybe if you didn't grow up on the classic Survivor Series match, you don't care about it. I like it when it's like a once-a-year thing, the Survivor Series matches, and that's why I brought up the wild card. I like when they're different and you have some intrigue in it. It's mostly for fun. The Survivor Series matches never really had any serious stakes, but I enjoyed the elimination matches, and you can ultimately build up somebody from one of those matches. Look at that 2003 match. Like, I think that was a really big match for Randy Orton. Being the sole survivor could elevate your career. 1987, the first one, when Andre the Giant won it. Not that Andre needed the win, but him being the sole survivor set him up for a rematch with Hulk Hogan. So the Survivor Series matches can definitely elevate a talent or multiple talents and advance a storyline. But yeah, I enjoy them. Yeah, they're not always with high stakes unless you look at like 2001 with the Team WWF versus Alliance. You know, that was obviously some. I would like that though. Wasn't there a series, it might have been 04, where the winning team got to be like a rotating general manager? Like, that was a cool concept. Like, they could come up with some things where like the winning team gets something, like each member gets a guaranteed title shot. Like, they could come up with some stuff where there are stakes on the line, change up the matches, like do a wild card or do an ultimate match of survival. Like, there's lots of ways they can tweak it and make it interesting. So thank you for that, Michael. And again, I appreciate the super chats. Feel free to send one. Give me a hard question. Your comment will go straight to the front here in the order of these questions that I have. Now, Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. A little comedy here for everybody. Says, are you still afraid of pictures of Ox Baker? He's a scary dude. Ox Baker, 70s wrestler, I think mostly 70s. He had the heart punch as his finisher. He was a scary dude. And for those of you that have no idea what Psycho Jet Black is talking about, back when I was a baby, my dad had a picture of Ox Baker on the wall, and I got freaked out. And my mom made my dad get rid of the picture. The picture was put in a closet, and guess what? When I was like 3 years old, I stumbled in the closet, found it, freaked out. Picture ended up in the trash. Here it is right there. That's me at like, man, I'm not a good judge of how old a baby is based on the size, but this was probably, 6 months, a year. Not sure how old I was there, but roughly 1983-ish. That picture was taken. So yeah, that was my earliest memory in my entire life, being freaked out by that Ox Baker picture. So yeah, wrestling was with me literally since the beginning. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. I hope you guys enjoyed the little flashback, the little trip down memory lane. Shout out to Psycho Jet Black, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Psycho. I appreciate the super chats. The question here is, will Omos be the last giant that WWE hires that can't cut promos or run read? Under the triple regime, I think they are less likely that it will happen. I'm not going to rule it out, though. If Triple H or Nick Khan hear about some wrestler that's a freak of nature and they think they can use him as an attraction, they might bring him in. And it might be a roll of the dice. You never know. Maybe there's a big guy that he doesn't really have much potential when you first look at him, but you take him to the Performance Center and he catches on. And then maybe you have a guy that looks like he has potential, but then he doesn't really pick up on it. So you never know when you're bringing in an outsider. Never say never. I think if you have a guy who is 7 feet tall and has interest in WWE, if I'm Triple H, I'm going to give him a shot. Why not? If he has the potential to be something, he could be a major superstar. So I still think that Triple H, Nick Khan, and everyone else, they will continue to see what's out there. And if there is a big guy who wants to get into wrestling, give him a shot. What do you have to lose? But yeah, it's not like the Vince. Triple H loves the independent wrestlers, so he's all about the smaller guys. But yeah, I think there's always that possibility if the right guy comes along, that they'll at least give him an opportunity. All right, shout out to Marshall Leonard. How's it going, Marshall? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the generous $10 super chat. I very much appreciate it. Marshall's question here says, what are your thoughts on Eric Bischoff's son during his TNA run? Do you think Garrett Bischoff could have worked had he not been pushed as Bischoff's son and gotten a chance to make it on his own? Garrett Bischoff is much like David Sammartino. He just didn't have it. He didn't have the natural charisma that his father did. I don't think it would have mattered if he had the talent. He would have had opportunities elsewhere. WWE would have given him a developmental deal. I think he got his TNA job because of his dad, bottom line. I don't even think he would have had a TNA opportunity if it wasn't for his father, Eric Bischoff. Nothing about him stood out. That Aces and Eights storyline, it was terrible. You could say, well, maybe if he wasn't in that storyline, he would have caught on with fans. I just didn't see anything in him. I don't think he really had any kind of potential whatsoever. And I don't think, even if he had a good storyline, it would have made any kind of a real difference. But thank you for that, Marshall. I very much appreciate the super chat and question. Now, Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat. Shout out to Dwayne. Thank you for the super chat. Says, did you freak when Ox Baker appeared on The Price is Right? I have never seen that, so I couldn't comment on that. Now I have to go check it out because I'm curious, just to see Ox Baker not in a wrestling environment. In a way, that might actually be scarier, to see Ox Baker like in street clothes with that bald head and the mustache. Honestly, that might freak me out more than seeing him in a wrestling ring. Sometimes when you see a guy who's abnormal in a normal environment, it throws you off even more. I'll have to go check that out and get back to you on that, Dwayne. Next time you're on a panel, ask me about it. Hopefully I'll check it out and be able to give you a response. Shout out to Psycho Jet Black, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you guys for sending in your super chats tonight. I very much appreciate it. Psycho Jet Black said, who do you think Charlotte is facing at WrestleMania 41? Good question. My gut feeling is one of two people. Either it's going to be Nia Jax or it's going to be Tiffany Stratton. I love the idea of Charlotte versus Tiffany, but I could also see a scenario where Nia Jax stays champion. You keep her as a strong champion to WrestleMania, and Charlotte comes back. Maybe Charlotte wins the Women's Royal Rumble, and then Charlotte challenges Nia for WrestleMania, and then that's when Tiffany cashes in Money in the Bank and becomes champion, and then Charlotte and Tiffany can feud after WrestleMania. I could definitely see that being a scenario. Maybe Charlotte returns sooner and beats Nia Jax at the Royal Rumble, but either way, I think Charlotte will be in the ring with Nia Jax and Tiffany in the near future. That's where I see Charlotte's future being. She's going to be going right back in the title hunt. She'll be in the mix when she comes back and will probably be in a title match at WrestleMania. So I do think she'll be in a title match, whether it's Charlotte versus Nia or Charlotte versus Tiffany. Hey, maybe it'll be a triple threat. You never know. I could see that as a potential match too. But one of those combinations is what I'm expecting for WrestleMania at this point. So thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. Marshall sent in a $5 super chat. The mighty one, Marshall. Thank you, Marshall. I appreciate it. Marshall says, do you think Tyson Tomko would have made it had he started today instead of during the era he started in? I'm going to call out TNA on this one. They missed an opportunity with Tyson Tomko. So Tomko was Christian's bodyguard in WWE. Didn't really go anywhere. He went to TNA and he was also with Christian. But then he started to organically get over with the fans. People were starting to get into him, and TNA didn't do anything with him. I don't know if there were things happening behind the scenes, and that's why he never got pushed to the top. But I seem to remember him having some legitimate organic momentum as a babyface, and he could have been like a Batista. I got that vibe from him, like when Batista broke away from Triple H. I had that vibe with Tyson Tomko, and I think they could have potentially done something with him and made him a superstar. Didn't work out, and again, maybe management didn't think he was worthy, talent-wise, of being at that level. I mean, WWE cut him for a reason, right? They didn't see the dollar signs in him, so maybe WWE was right, maybe TNA was right, but man, I feel like they had something there, and they didn't fully capitalize on it. So would have it worked today? It's hard to say. You never know when somebody's going to catch on, and sometimes it might not be the guy that you want if you're the booker. But in today's era, at least for WWE, I don't think I could say this for AEW, maybe TNA today, but definitely not AEW. I mean, TNA doesn't really capitalize on their guys either. I mean, Joe Hendry never won the world title despite how over he's been the last couple months. I think today, WWE, if Tyson started getting the big reactions, they might have gone with him. Maybe even 7-8 years ago, like with Braun Strowman started to organically get over, and WWE, for the most part, went with it. You know, Strowman had his ups and downs, but they did push him, and he was a top star, and he got released, and then he was brought back. So, yeah, maybe in this era, Tyson Tomko would have been something. It's hard to say, though, because sometimes guys that aren't necessarily the most talented, they might have the right look and be at the right place at the right time, and they catch on. So you really don't know. Thank you for that, Marshall. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Dwayne. I very much appreciate it. Dwayne says, who would truly beat the record, John Cena or Charlotte Flair? Well, here's what might be an unpopular opinion. I think both of them are going to break the record, the 17 titles. Charlotte's got a lot of time left in her career, bearing any serious injuries. I could see Charlotte wrestling another 5 to 10 years at least. Plenty of time to break the record, and I think it will happen. I think she will be a 17. I think she'll beat Cena at some point. I think Cena will break it. I think in 2025, this is an early New Year's prediction. I think John Cena will become a 17-time world champion. He's going to be the first one to do it. Charlotte will be next. It's just a matter of when. Maybe 5 to 10 years down the line. I think Charlotte will break the 17 title record that John Cena will break in 2025. So Cena will be number 2. Charlotte, I think one day she's going to be number 1. And, you know, just for the female empowerment, too. Triple H or whoever's booking, regardless of the rumors, I think the people in charge will be like, let's have a woman with the all-time record. So, yeah. I think Cena will do it first, and then Charlotte will surpass Cena's record at some point in the future. Another shout out to Marshall, the mighty one Leonard. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate the super chats very much. Now, Marshall sent in a $5 super chat and said, do you think Baron Corbin will go to TNA now that he's a free agent, and that will be his way back in WWE eventually? Baron Corbin is I believe he's in his 40s, right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. Baron Corbin is not an up-and-comer. He's been around. I don't think that WWE is going to be quick to bring him back. I could see him maybe making a cameo down the line, but I think WWE is going to focus on younger talent. Baron Corbin might have a good run in TNA. I don't think he's going to end up in AEW. He's not an internet darling, even though some people think he's underrated. I think he'll have a decent run in TNA. He might be TNA World Champion if that's something he wants to do. He might go to Japan. He might do some stuff there. But I do not think he's going to have another major run in wrestling, at least in the United States, on a mainstream level, whether it's WWE or AEW. Unfortunately for Corbin, I think his best days are probably behind him at this point. So I don't think he'll be back in WWE, at least in any kind of a prominent role. Maybe a cameo. Could he be in the Hall of Fame? Not sure about that one, but I mean, he did retire Kurt Angle, right? So guess you can make that argument, but yeah. Not expecting him to come back and do much if he ever does come back. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it. This is a question that I think we've all asked ourselves at some point. Why do you think Bray Wyatt was booked to lose so much? I think that maybe the attitude was that Bray Wyatt could afford to lose. Sometimes if you have charisma and personality, that could work against you because the booker, the people in charge might be like, well, you can lose. The crowd will still love you no matter what. And that's why some guys like the Hardy Boys might be beaten over and over again because they're over. The fans love them and they'll always be into them. Maybe that was the attitude with Bray Wyatt. This guy is so creative. He's so talented. He doesn't need to win all the time. It was very mind-boggling, though. And I definitely think WWE made a lot of mistakes with Bray Wyatt. Definitely in the earlier part of his career, he could have been world champion. He was, but then they did that awful match with the worms or the bugs on the screen, whatever it was, that was superimposed on the ring. That was just an awful WrestleMania match. And then losing to Bill Goldberg as The Fiend, doing that Hell in a Cell with lighting, with Rollins. Some really terrible booking decisions. And yeah, we even adopted the nickname, the Eater of Pinfalls. Yeah, I think they should have protected him more. He didn't need to win constantly, but I think they did have him lose too much. But to his credit, he always reinvented himself. You know, he came up with The Fiend, and then in 2002 he came back and reinvented himself again, and who knows what he would have done if he had lived. I mean, Bray Wyatt definitely had the talent to rise above the bad booking and stay relevant. All right, shout out to Dwayne Atkinson. I always want to say Atkinson, but it's Atkinson. Dwayne says, who do you think will be the next one-time world champion? So first-time world champion. Who will be the next person to win their first world championship? That's a little bit of a tough one. I think for the women, I'm going with Tiffany Stratton. I mean, she obviously is close to being a champion. She's got the briefcase, the Money in the Bank contract. To me, she will probably be the first male or female to become a first-time world champion. As far as the men go, I am going to go on a limb and say Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, I think, is going to be world champion. It's just a matter of when. He's the guy that people have been saying is going to be the future of WWE. I don't think it's going to be Dirty Dom. I don't think it's going to be Sami Zayn. My pick for the men is Braun Breaker. My pick for the women is Tiffany Stratton. Shout out to, not sure how to pronounce the name, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. And shout out to Billy L. I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you for your long-time viewership of the channel. I really do appreciate it. And thank you guys for your super chats. And if you are watching this and you appreciate the video and you enjoy it, do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. That is the best way you can help the channel, is to like the video and share it. Share. Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky. NoDQ is now on Blue Sky. Follow us over there. We'll follow you back if you give us a shout out on there. Now, Marshall sent in another $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Marshall. I very much appreciate the super chats tonight. Marshall says, do you think Baron Corbin could have been a world champion had he been over with the fans to a Dave Bautista level? I think if WWE had gone in a different direction with Corbin, he might have had that chance. The problem is Vince McMahon saw him as a heel. Vince didn't see the babyface side of Baron Corbin. I think Corbin could have gotten over as an anti-authority figure, as an anti-hero. Corbin coming out there being the lone wolf, I think he could have done well, but for whatever reason, Vince liked Corbin as the loudmouth heel, King Corbin, Constable Corbin, Happy Corbin. Vince had all these gimmicks for Corbin, and I think Corbin was definitely in the wrong roles. I think if Baron Corbin had stuck with the lone wolf and maybe turned babyface, yeah, he could have very well been a contender for the world championship. But again, it's down to the organic reactions from the fans, and the fans never truly got behind Baron Corbin. So what's funny is I think back, the fans in France loved Baron Corbin. That could have been an opportunity to flip the switch on him, showed the footage on Monday Night Raw and gave him that babyface push at that point. But WWE never did it. So what's done is done, and I don't see anything happening with him at this point, unfortunately for him. All right, got a $2 super chat here. Another one from Dwayne. Thank you, Dwayne, for the super chats tonight. What do you think is the worst gimmick ever? There's a couple. Bastion Booger. I mean, how do you even find that to be entertaining? I mean, if you're Vince McMahon, you have to think of him in his sick, twisted mind. He probably thought Bastion Booger was absolute gold. Duke the Dumpster Drosy. Yeah, I really want to watch a garbage man as a wrestler. Yeah, great idea there, Vince. Mantar. Let's take a guy and put a big bull head over him. That was terrible. A lot of those 93 to 95 gimmicks were really bad. The hockey player, what was his name? I think Louis Spicolli was that role. Maybe I'm wrong. Who was the hockey player guy? He was terrible too. I'm trying to think what Louis Spicoli's gimmick was. Was it Radford or something? Jeff. Oh, I think Jeff left. Somebody help me here. What was Louis Spicolli's gimmick in WWE in '95? Oh, the Goo was the gimmick, the hockey player. He was terrible. That was another bad one. Who? I'm not asking the question. I'm saying the wrestler. Who? Jim Neidhart. That was another one. Man Mountain Rock was another really bad one. Mordecai was awful. Like, that gimmick had no business being on WWE TV in 2004. Like, it was just completely out of place. You want to talk about bad gimmicks? Luther Reigns was a bad gimmick. Yeah, Rad Radford was Louis Spicolli's gimmick, another bad one. Saba Simba was just, terrible for many reasons, just very offensive. TJ Hopper was another bad one. I liked Seven. I'm sad that they threw that gimmick away. I thought it was kind of cool. Uncle Fester showing up to play Trick or Treat year round. I kind of liked the Seven gimmick, and then they just completely ditched it. I liked Repo Man. It was dumb, but it was fun. Barry Darsow played the gimmick well. It had a shelf life, but it was pretty entertaining while it lasted. Luther Reigns can kiss my ass. That's all I got to say about that. Mr. Tito, shout out to Tito, who has made it to the No DQ&A video. Mr. Tito, I guess this is somewhat wrestling related because Mike Tyson's a WWE Hall of Famer and Jake Paul is the brother of former United States champion Logan Paul. I would go with Jake Paul just because of the age. I feel like Mike Tyson is doing this for a quick payday, He's almost 60 years old. Why not? You can get beat up and collect another $1 million or $5 million or whatever the hell he's making for this. Probably more than that. I don't even know what he's making, but I'm guessing it's well into the seven figures. But yeah, I would say Jake Paul wins that one. And this is coming from somebody with zero boxing knowledge. So I'm just going with the younger guy in this case. Mike Tyson, I feel like he's there to collect a paycheck. Publicity. Go out there, get an easy payday. All right, I got a couple more email questions here. So this one comes from Caleb Thomas. Shout out to Caleb. Caleb says, do you see WWE becoming more Attitude Era style when they move to Netflix, or do you see it being the same PG product? WWE will never be as extreme as it was during the Attitude Era. Having said that, I do think, at least for the beginning of the Netflix run, they will push the envelope a little bit more. I could see some uncensored profanity. They might do blood a little bit more often, but you're not going to see bra and panties, man. You're not going to see racial stuff. Like, they don't want to alienate their audience. So you're not going to see stuff like that. You're not going to see them using racial slurs or homophobic slurs, even if it's a character saying it to get heat. They're not going to go there. They're going to be politically correct in that sense. They don't want to alienate people. But yeah, I think the profanity might pick up a little bit. The chants aren't going to be censored. We may have some more blood, but that's probably the extent of it. I would not go into the Netflix premiere expecting them to just, oh my God, it's the Wild Wild West again. It's 1997, 98. Don't go in with those expectations. You'll be disappointed. So thank you for that, Caleb Thomas. Now, Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Dwayne. I very much appreciate it. Dwayne sent in this question. Who's going to benefit most when New Day splits? We don't know they're splitting. It's been teased on WWE television, but I still have this feeling that Big E is going to show up and get them back together and that will be the full-blown reunion of the New Day. They always said they're never going to break up, so I'll believe it when I see it that we actually get a breakup. Now, let's say they do break up, and they actually pulled the trigger on it, which I'm getting my hopes on. I'm not getting my hopes on that. I think that one to push, Kofi Kingston's had his run at the top. Xavier's never really gotten that major upper card push as a singles competitor. He won King of the Ring, but that doesn't really mean much. So I think if you're going to do the split, go big or go home. Take Xavier Woods to the next level if you're going to do it. Otherwise, don't even bother. You might as well not even bother with a split unless you're going to take Xavier Woods and push him to the new level. There's not really anything you can do with Kofi that hasn't already been done. So the key would be Xavier Woods and turning him into a major star, or at least letting him have a big singles push that Kofi and Big E got. But right now, my prediction is Big E's going to bring them back together. Whether Big E's coming back to wrestle or not, I feel like he's going to show up and be the one that gets everyone back on good terms. All right, Psycho Jet Black with an interesting question. Psycho Jet Black says, what was worse, WWE 2019 or WCW 2000? WCW 2000 was by far worse. When you look at it from a financial standpoint, not even close. WCW was tanking hard. Attendance was dropping, and they were losing millions of dollars every month. And the shows were creatively a disaster. I mean, it was entertaining to watch, but it was a train wreck. It was like Rome burning. It was just a car crash. You couldn't help but watch, but it was very sad to see. WWE 2019 was a mixed bag. It had a lot of bad creative moments. I mentioned it earlier with The Fiend. Some bad booking decisions there. I mentioned Baron Corbin. The best in the world, Shane McMahon. By the way, haven't heard anything new about Shane. There was a comment in the chat. Nothing new on him. Jury's still out if he ends up in AEW. I'm leaning towards no at this point. WWE had some bad segments in 2019, but also some good ones. Becky Lynch's rise to the top, 2019. You had Kofi Mania, 2019. The Planet's Champion, Daniel Bryan, 2019. There were some fun moments in that year. SummerSlam, I was at SummerSlam in Toronto. That was a really good show. There were some good pay-per-views in 2019. But yes, there were for every good segment, there was a bad one. And it was definitely one of the most polarizing years in WWE history. I mean, it was bad enough that AEW was able to form and build a revolution and get people wanting an alternative and, just changing the business. So thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate it. All right, we got one here from Jeremiah Dorset. Shout out to Jeremy. Says, on the men's roster in WWE, who do you see being the next Grand Slam champion? John Cena, Sheamus, or someone else? By the way, shout out to Joey. Happy birthday, Joey. Hope you're doing well. A lot of people have been talking about John Cena winning the Intercontinental title, the one title he's never won. Maybe. I could see that as a possibility. I'm not even sure which title Sheamus needs to complete the Grand Slam. So, is it the IC title? I'm not even sure. I think Sheamus would probably be more likely than John Cena because Sheamus is going to seemingly be around for the long haul. Yeah, IC title. With Cena, it's his last run. He's probably going for the world title, but hey, it's a full year. You could have Cena do that too, so he could check every box of his career, win every championship, become 17-time champion. Could happen, but I'll lean towards Sheamus just because I think Sheamus has several more years left in his career. He's got more time to get that IC title at some point. So if I had to make a prediction, which one, I'm going to say Sheamus. Maybe both of them get it at some point. But you asked me next. So if John Cena is going to do it, he's only got a year to do it. Sheamus has several years. So maybe in that regard, I'll say Cena will be the next. But I don't know if Cena's going to do it or not. I feel like he's going to focus on the world title. All right, I got one more here from Jeremiah Dorset. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. Thank you for the emails. Jeremiah Dorset says, hey, Aaron, what are your thoughts? And by the way, this will probably be the last question. So if you were planning to super chat, get it in here. We're coming up to the hour. Otherwise, I'll be wrapping it up after this one. So Jeremiah Dorset says, what are your thoughts on Randy Orton being the sole survivor 3 years in a row? I thought it was great for Randy Orton. I think that's how you book somebody to be a top-level guy. I'm a big fan of having Randy Orton accomplish that 3 years in a row. And then he beat Shawn Michaels in 2007. Randy Orton had some good runs there in Survivor Series. You know, you could make an argument Randy Orton is Mr. Survivor Series. He's had a lot of big moments at Survivor Series, and yeah, that was big for his career. Not as big as beating Mick Foley, but still pretty good. I'm definitely a fan of Orton picking up those wins in those years. All right, we got one more super chat here from Anthony. Shout out to Anthony. Hope you're doing well. I appreciate it. Anthony says, yesterday was the anniversary of Eddie Guerrero's death. If he had lived, do you think WWE would have done something with him and Dominic, and how would you book it? I don't think Eddie would have still been wrestling today if he had lived. He probably would have retired by this point. But I could have seen him coming back and having some kind of a role. Maybe he would have been a manager. Maybe I think if Eddie Guerrero had lived, absolutely worked with Dominic again, and they would have gotten him into the mix. Maybe he would have been the special guest referee for Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio. How cool would that have been? But yes, absolutely 100%. I think he would have loved what Dominic is doing right now, and he would have been involved 100%. I just don't know if he would have been wrestling by this point. He was beat up. If he had gone to a doctor and the doctor said, hey, your heart's in bad shape, you have to retire, I don't know if he would have retired or not, but maybe he would have, and he probably would have stepped away from wrestling if the circumstances were different and doctors were able to find out, hey, something's wrong here, you got to get out of the business. But yeah, I would have seen him being involved in some sense. Kind of like with Triple H, where he had that serious health crisis and had to retire. I think same thing. If they had been able to catch it, Eddie probably would have retired quite a while back. All right, shout out to Mr. Tito. Hope you're doing well, Tito. I appreciate the super chats. Says, why do you drink water during each question? Dry throat or nervous tick? Well, have you ever tried talking for an hour straight? It's a dry throat. You got to take a sip of water every now and then, and I tend to run on and talk a lot. If you notice, I don't do it when we're doing the Nodq review as much because, I actually have a time to take a break. But yeah, if you try talking for an hour, you can get a dry throat. It happens. But thank you for that, Mr. Tito, and I'm going to take one more just for you. All right, I got one more question here via email I wanted to get to from Ian. Ian wanted me to answer the World War III question, so I will. Hope you're doing well, Ian. Ian brought up World War III. Could Triple H potentially bring that match back with such a huge roster and a bigger production team and budget? It would be awesome today, he says, starving for WWE to bring back another WCW match. I actually don't think that's a terrible idea. Why not? You hit the nail right on the head. They got a better production team. The problem with that World War III match was WCW production wasn't great. And it was kind of a mess to watch. It would still be challenging, but with WWE's production team, they could pull it off and make it work. You know, they could structure it and make sure the camera angles are in the right positions and, you know, put the whole thing together so it would look good on TV. And yes, you could get like everybody or practically everybody in one match. I think that's a great idea to bring that back. Tweet him, message him. World War III in a WWE ring. I say do it. I think they should do that. I think they should do the triple cage. It's going to come down to the fan demand, though. You know, War Games was a beloved match. World War III, not so much. They did it for several years, but it never really got rave reviews. War Games was an old sentimental favorite for a lot of people, probably including Triple H himself. He was a big fan growing up of War Games, you know, breaking into the business when War Games was at its peak. He was a fan of it. He probably wasn't a fan of World War III. I don't even think there's that many wrestlers that you ask them, hey, did you grow up on World War III? I don't think too many of them are going to say, yeah, World War III was my favorite match growing up. But if there was enough people that asked for it or clamored for it, I think they would do it. And you know what? I'm going to go on Twitter and X and I'm going to propose it. And I'm going to tag Triple H. So if you're on Twitter or X, you see them post, retweet it, send it to Triple H. Let's do it. Let's get World War III booked on a WWE show. 60 men. Imagine if they have to do it for the women too. So we got 120 people. Would that be one night? 120 people on one show? How crazy would that be? That would be insane. Which is why I'm pushing for it now, because it would be a spectacle. All right, so on that note, I'm going to close out this episode of No DQ&A video. Very fun stream tonight. Thank you all for your super chats. Much love and appreciation. Thank you to everybody else in the chat room for participating and leaving your thoughts. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com. Keep following NoDQ at NoDQ, DOTCOM. Here's one more drink of water for Mr. Tito. I'll be back before the end of the year with one more No DQ&A